Welcome back to Front and Center. I'm Jacquie Jordan. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you'd like to follow us, please subscribe to us on YouTube or any place that you listen to your favorite podcast. Joining me today is Dr. Kendra Becker. She's the author of A Delicious Way to Heal the Gut and All You Can Eat, which means to me that you follow your gut instinct on everything that you do. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, at the top of the show, I was talking about actually Mary Tyler Moore, because they've got a documentary about her on HBO, and she ended up dying of diabetes. So she had a lifelong condition of natal diabetes. But you're a doctor of naturopathy with a long history, and I love what you do because you do more preventative medicine. Give me a little bit of background just on the whole gut, mind, brain philosophy that you practice.
Oh, absolutely. So in naturopathic medicine, we believe that disease is caused by obstacles. And the medicine actually, when we remove the obstacle, we have a cure. So I think it's a beautiful, perfect kind of modality to use. So we also believe that all disease begins and ends in the gut. So your gut's got to be healthy, and that will then translate to your body being healthy. And if your gut is out of balance or unhealthy, then your body will be unhealthy. And interestingly enough, in the last 10 years, we've learned that the microbiome, the landscape of the gut, is now very similar to the landscape or the microbiome that we see in our brain and nervous system. So again, our gut and our brain are very, very intimately connected.
And so, so some of the work that you do, you work with women our age, particularly.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of changes in that whole part of our anatomy.
Correct.
What is some of the things that you see as we become of this age as women that we need to be like paying attention to? So
it's funny that you say that, because I think 5 years ago, I would have said, oh, it's diet. Now there's definitely a shift in how our bodies manage the macros, so macros are fat, carbohydrates, and protein. So I always say in your 30s and 40s, we're in our baby making phase, right? So our bodies have a different relationship with carbohydrates. You need carbohydrates to maintain pregnancies and athleticism. And then as we get a little bit older, we're in the baby chasing phase. So our relationship with carbohydrates change. So I really truly believe in a paleo or a ketogenic type diet for women in their upper 40s and 50s. I think it's a better, a more efficient way to burn calories. And I really feel like after 40, nobody should be counting calories. And that way we just look at our macros. We eat a very clean, nutrient-dense diet that eliminates a lot of complex carbohydrates. It increases our energy. It increases our, emotional balance, and certainly helps our guts work much better.
I so appreciate that. And I've talked about that on here on the show because I call it the food program. We've been giving so many food programs that it's like, should we eat this or shouldn't we eat this? That we don't even know anymore what is safe. And you kind of cut to the chase with it all right now.
Absolutely. And it's not that complicated. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote my second book, is because what you hear, somebody comes in the office, now they make the first commitment and they wait 3 months to get in, and then they come in the office and I'm like, you got to do the diet. And they're like, I don't want to do the diet. And I'm like, you got to do the diet. And then, you go into this whole complicated phase where they think everything is so complicated. What I hear a lot is, I'm Italian, I can't give up pasta. I ate sandwiches every day of my life, I can't give up bread. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. If you look at your dinner plate and half your plate is, protein, and then a quarter of it is, healthy carbs like broccoli or green vegetables, and then the other quarter of it is fat. That's things like butter and olive oil and bacon and avocado, things that are delicious to eat. It's not anything that is, you're not suffering or feeling like you're going to go hungry on a diet that doesn't have any carbohydrates.
And it's true, because when you actually eat really healthy and well, you're naturally satiated.
Absolutely.
And, you don't have cravings, so you don't have to deal with that.
Totally true.
So we're going to talk about the dirty word that everybody's been, the two words, there's many dirty words in the past couple of years in terms of health, but the spike protein.
Oh, yes.
The famous spike protein is also a gut issue.
For
so
sure.
What have you been seeing with that in the
Yeah, it's crazy. When we first were exposed to the spike protein, I saw a whole influx. And so my practice is small, it's only about 5,000 patients, but I use it as a microcosm for, at least the holistic community where, I am a part of. And so what I was seeing initially, even in my own family, I saw kids and adults that were getting out in public on airplanes or in the mall, and they would get nosebleeds. And I thought it was so strange until I saw about about 24 patients come in with the same complaint. And I realized that that was actually, these people had not been vaccinated, but they were exposed to the spike protein. And, the microclotting was causing these issues with nosebleeds. And it was almost like something that you tried and true with your patients. All right, go to the mall, spend a couple hours there, and then come home and let's see what happens. And almost all of them would report that they were having issues. And so that was kind of on the outset when everybody had first started getting vaccinated. Then the long-term stuff starts to show up about a year and a half later, and it's menstrual irregularities. In women, menstrual irregularities. Young girls were getting irregular periods, or older women that were having inconsistent periods are now having these heavy, really, really challenging, cramping, painful, exsanguinating kind of periods. Women were trying to get pregnant or would be able to get pregnant and have a lot of early miscarriages at like 5 or 6 weeks. And that stuck around for a little while. Now we have a lot more information about how to support our patients, both from preventative and from management standpoints. And I think that's been really effective for us. And
so the spike protein can come in like one or two ways. It can either come in from the actual the infection,
correct,
the infection itself, or it could come in from also the shot as well.
Correct.
So either side of it, you can end up with some spike protein.
Correct. And the issue is of course, we know that the virus itself was modified.
Right.
And my concern with the vaccine is not so much, everybody, keeps talking about mRNA as being kind of the buzzword. mRNA is super fragile. We use mRNA in therapeutic aspects to be able to help heal people with brain injury and brain trauma and, heal from car accidents and broken bones. And it can be very effective in a good way, but it's super, super fragile. It's, damaged by heat and light. And so it's not the mRNA that I'm terribly concerned with. It's more of the nanoparticles that allow the movement and the management of the mRNA through the body that is causing a bigger issue in my concern.
That's interesting. And so I know there was a bunch of us, and it's not necessarily a medically sanctioned way of doing it, but a lot of us did live blood analysis.
Yes.
Some of us who had the shot, some of us who didn't have the shot.
Right.
And, they all the blood looked the same.
Yeah.
And I always say for the folks that didn't get the shot, they still look like they were uploaded with the hardware.
Correct.
And that's what you're talking about, the carrier.
Exactly. And I focus a lot on genetics and epigenetics, which is above the genetics. So it looks at not, what God gives us is our genetics, but that doesn't define us. Our environment and what we put into our body and put on our body and expose to our body is a far greater implicator of our health. And so like you said, we all have the hardware, but at some point you can clean that hard drive and update it or discard it. And it's the software that actually drives the management of that hardware that can be much more challenging.
And so what are some of the protocols that you've been recommending to your clients that are either got it through the infection, got it through the shot, or got it through the friend of the person who got the
exactly
one or the other at this point?
So we use a lot of nattokinase. Dr. McCullough is a big name in COVID management. Yeah. He's a good guy. And so Dr. McCullough recommends a lot of nattokinase. I've had great success with that even prior to COVID. There's some evidence that shows that it does reverse cardiac disease. Does help with brain injury. So
it's like annihilates the spike protein, basically.
Absolutely. Binds it, makes it inert, and then allows the body to eliminate it. And then all the stuff that we all said from the beginning, which
Zinc.
Exactly.
Vitamin C.
Zinc, vitamin C, quercetin, NAC. The other thing that's been really helpful in both, exposure and, spike protein management is glutathione.
Glutathione. Yeah.
So any way you can get it,
And that's why it was a problem for people who were older, because we stopped making glutathione naturally.
Correct.
And that was why older people were they couldn't figure out why it wasn't happening in children, but older people were.
Right. And why kids are basically immune, both even to the spike protein. The conversion rate in kids for the spike protein is much lower than in adults because their immune systems are moving so quickly. They don't differentiate. They just toss all the stuff. So.
And then what I found fascinating then is, so I love kind of learning that the mRNA itself is fragile.
Yes.
So when they are putting it in, now using it with animals that are going to be, in the food supply of animals,
right.
What are your thoughts on that?
So I was in a think tank at the very beginning with COVID. I don't buy Louboutins. We don't fly to Europe or ride on the Titanic. We geek out and, analyze viruses and bacteria. So sorry, it's That's what we do for our spare time. So we spent a lot of time looking at the COVID virus itself, looking at how we predicted it would mutate, what we thought it would cause as far as, death and damage, for a population. And we were pretty right on from the very beginning, prior to the announcement of the pandemic. So I'm happy to say that. I've kept in touch with a lot of these MD, PhDs, and one is in particular is a specialist in mRNA, and they work with mRNA on a daily basis. And the amount of protective mechanisms that have to be in place for them to even expose mRNA to oxygen is totally crazy. It's such a delicate, friable organism, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so I'm personally, and so when all this came out about the food, I called them and I said, well, what do you think? Like, I grow my own food. I'm not worried about me.
You have a farm.
I got a farm. I'm good. But I was, you need to be able to give advice as a doctor to your patients. Right. And so their advice was, there's not much that you need to be concerned about with regard to them using mRNA or spraying it on food because it is so friable. And I think the same thing does apply to injecting it into animals. The only concern is I worry about the viability of the animals because it can upregulate an immune system, which is what it's meant to do. And then we worry about cancers and autoimmune conditions. And that may be some of the catalyst for the FDA or the farmers to say this is not, animal protein that's suitable for human consumption.
Got it. Yeah.
So I wonder if that's the route that they'll go.
Right. I like how you use that language, up-level immune system. That is real. But that's really what it is, right? Yeah. So, when you think about it, because is it autoimmune disease or is it cancer? It's all just a misdirection or miscommunication in our immune system. Interesting. So getting back to basics is getting that microbiome in the gut, detoxing the things in the system that are not supposed to be there.
Supposed to be there. Exactly.
And so you have a practice here in Sarasota as well as in Connecticut.
I do.
And we can follow you on Instagram.
Absolutely.
So if you'd like to learn more, you can find Dr. Kendra Becker's books on Amazon, A Delicious Way to Heal the Gut and All You Can Eat. And I really thank you so much for joining us here today on Front and Center.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thank you.